Hello, and welcome to A Fistful of Dice. My name is Matt. I'm joined today by my lovely fiancée, Tila, and this is going to be a new series on the channel called Party of Two, where we sit down and talk about Dungeons & Dragons and RPGs and tabletop games in general, because we both have very different perspectives coming at it from two very different points in our lives. So I thought it would be interesting for you guys to kind of get a different perspective on my channel instead of me just yakking at you constantly. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about Origins, and I feel like this is a really good place to start out with this series, and it's going to be talking about how we both got started in the hobby and how we've changed over the course of our time with the hobby and where we see ourselves going with it, and also some sort of general advice for people coming into it new, because there are a lot of new people coming into it with the new edition of D&D. So without further ado, here's the first episode of Party of Two.
Party of Two.
So, Tila, how did you get started in D&D? How old were you when you started playing?
Oh, you're asking me my age?
I am asking you your age.
Let's see. I was 26.
26.
When I started playing D&D. I was invited by a mutual friend of Matt and I's.
Mm-hmm.
She and I had been friends for a while, and so like we watched a lot of movies, read a lot of the same books, and one day she was like, "Hey, I play D&D with this group once or twice a week," and I already knew that, but it just had never really, it was never really in my, like, in your vision. I mean, you were kind of peripherally like exposed to D&D. Right, yeah. And of course I know what you see on like TV about D&D. You know, it's like people role playing and rolling dice, and that's about as much as I knew about it.
Yeah.
And so one day she said, "Hey, I play D&D with these people, and I think you'd get along with them really well. I think that you'd really enjoy the game." I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I've never done anything like that before. I'd like, tell me more about it. And she started telling me about, you can make any kind of character you want to, and you can like have an animal companion.
That's what got you. That's what I don't want to generalize here, but a really good way to get most women into the hobby is to say you can have an animal companion.
You can have a pet tiger if you want to.
You can ride on a dinosaur.
Yeah,
that'll I mean, that gets most guys too, but for some reason the animal companion clinches it.
It did. It made my mind up for me. And so I came with her to one session that Matt was DMing.
Yeah, I believe it was Sunless Citadel. Your first exposure to it. Yeah, which is a good way to get exposed to D&D. Yeah.
And she and Matt had rolled up a character for me. They had put this character together for me, and it was a dwarf fighter named Brunhilde.
Yeah.
And so I came to D&D and played the couple sessions of Sunless Citadel.
Yeah, I think it was 3 sessions altogether.
Yeah, and really enjoyed it. And then they said, "Hey, you want to keep gaming with us? We're starting a new campaign. Yeah. We can kind of fit you into that." And
the rest is history, as they say.
Exactly.
So what was your like before you had been exposed to D&D through our mutual friend? Like, what was, if someone had said Dungeons and Dragons, what did you picture? Because like when I ask that question of a lot of people who aren't in the hobby, they say, I picture like people in costumes hitting each other with swords. Like they think it's like LARPing or boffing. Like they're like, I feel like you have to dress up and it's like a Renaissance fair thing. They don't actually know, or they think it's like a board game. Yeah. They don't actually know that it's all kind of in your mind or whatever, and you're not necessarily acting things out to some extent. So what was your like?
You know, honestly, I didn't really have much of a preconceived idea.
Oh, really?
I knew that you rolled dice.
Yeah.
And that was about it.
Okay. I mean, the dice rolling is a lot of fun.
Yeah. So that was really that's all I knew about it.
Yeah.
Was that and I knew that there was like I thought there was lots of writing involved for some reason.
Oh, really?
Like that, I knew there was paper and like you would like have to keep track of stuff or write stuff down.
Yeah.
And you would roll dice.
Yeah.
And that was it.
How I got started was, a lot of people know this story, but my dad played Dungeons & Dragons when he was a kid. They can actually probably see Vince and SK fighting in the background.
Yeah,
so
I kind of made
perfect.
a face. I was like,
yeah.
oh, God.
Our cats are playing right now.
Yeah.
So. They always choose to do that as soon as I start filming. But my dad had played D&D and D&D style games as a kid. And when I was 10 or 11, we played, I think, just 1 or 2 sessions of the Star Wars West End Games RPG, which was the D6 RPG. And I didn't even really make the connection between it and D&D. I didn't, I was so young and I was so sort of unexposed to it that I didn't think this is a D&D game. This is a D&D style game. I just thought it was a fun little creative thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't really come up with my character. I just told my dad I wanted to play Han Solo, and so he basically made me a Han Solo type character. And then for a couple years I didn't play, and then when I was about 12 or 13, that's when 3rd edition came out. And my dad was like, would you be interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons? And I was like, isn't that what nerds do? And I'm 12 years old and I'm watching Gundam Wing religiously, and I'm just like, that's a nerdy thing, But he brought home the 3rd edition starter set, and we used the pre-generated characters, and my dad and my sister and I played through the starter adventure, and I died right away. But I loved it. I thought it was really fun. And from there we ran Sunless Citadel as a family. So my dad was the DM, my mom played, my sister played, and I played. And this is funny because my mom and sister, so just picturing them playing D&D. But it was totally beer and pretzel style D&D. No, we didn't do any role playing, we didn't do voices, we didn't act like our characters. It was just go in, kill stuff, grab loot type stuff. But I remember Meepo was really fun to interact with,
Meepo.
and my dad did the little Meepo voice, and so that it was a lot of fun. And then from there we played. Every few months we played a couple sessions of something. We played a lot of Savage Worlds, some more Star Wars stuff, lots of D&D. And then in college, I started a game group, and I've been playing pretty religiously ever since. So that's how I got started in it. But I got started much, much earlier than you did. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think is... what was different about you coming to D&D, as an adult? What would have been different if you had come to it, as a kid? Or,
as a kid?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Would you see it any differently, or...
That's kind of a tricky question.
Yeah.
Because I came into it and played with peers.
Right.
There wasn't, an adult leading it.
Okay,
whereas, for you, you had, an adult leader.
Yeah.
And then, the kids played.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that maybe would be a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and a lot of people, when they started D&D, if they were playing originally, it was them and their friends. And so it was I'm 12, my 12-year-old friend is DMing. Right. None of us know the rules, and we're just kind of bullshitting around the table.
Well, yeah,
basically.
You're all kind of learning at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas the group that I came into, everyone who I was playing with was pretty experienced.
Yeah, and I mean, we had a couple of not rules lawyer, but people who were very boned up on the rules at the table, and I mean, you caught on to this stuff pretty quick as well.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, I'm really smart.
You are really smart.
No. No, I did catch on to it pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it made a lot of sense as the rules kind of mirrored real life type things for me. And actually, I think that's probably a big difference between doing it as a little kid and an adult.
And doing it as an adult, yeah.
As I can kind of understand
Vince is playing with the camera cord.
Yeah, so would be, I think, a big difference between, as a little kid, this is just the rules and you do it because it's the rules.
Right.
Whereas an adult, it's well, I'm trying to...
make a correlation between real life and the rules. You're better able to see
able to see the correlation.
Okay. Yeah.
Where it's if you are, if you're trying to charm someone into doing something for you in the game, you roll your charisma. If you're trying to charm someone into doing something for you in real life, you're using your charisma.
You're using your charisma. Yeah, that's true. Or your strength, however you wanna go about it. But if you want to strong arm somebody. But no, I would say that's a good sort of way of looking at it is as a kid, the rules are a little bit more abstract.
Right.
And as an adult, or as somebody who has lived a little bit, you're better able to say like, oh, I know what diplomacy is. I know what bluffing is. I know what, looking for different knowledges is or whatever.
Yeah. So you can, and for me anyways, I feel like you can anticipate a little more what you're going to need to do to be successful.
Right.
In an action.
Yeah. No. And for me, D&D is one of those games where people, when they're like creating their first character or they're first sitting down and looking at their character sheet, it's just overwhelming.
Right.
And then when they realize that I don't need to look at this character sheet as a whole and make sense of it, I need to look at one number.
Right.
Like one number at a time. And I feel like once that clicks with people, it's like, okay, so if I tell the DM I would like to try to jump off this balcony and land in a haystack, he's going to tell me what to roll. I don't need to say, I don't know what to, like, I'm not looking for a solution on the character sheet. I'm just sort of playing it out in my head. So.
Well, and honestly, I think that's one of the big things another thing that helped me catch on really quickly. We're kind of going off of topic here for a second.
That's fine. We can tangent.
But you asked about, like, how catching on to the rules. Yeah. And one of the reasons why I caught on to the rules so quickly is because this is so cheesy. But I had a really good DM who was just like, you don't need to know what your character sheet is like. Right. I'll tell you what you need to do. And everyone else at the table was encouraging with that too. As far as, it's okay that you've never played this before and you don't know what you're doing. Right. Because all you have to say is, this is what I would this is what I would like to try to do. Exactly. And then the DM will tell you, okay, do this and see if it works. Right,
right. And I actually think that is I've talked about this before in videos, but the best strategy when introducing somebody completely new to the hobby is don't talk about the rules at all. Right. Maybe give them you're going to be rolling dice and adding numbers to the dice roll based on how good you are at certain things. Yeah. And you're going to have numbers that represent your physical strength, your mobility, your, all that kind of stuff. But not handing them a player's handbook and saying, read this. Yeah. I feel like that's the worst thing you can do.
Don't give them homework.
Yeah, exactly. So many dungeon masters are like, oh, you want to play my D&D game? Here, borrow my extra player's handbook. Right. Read it cover to cover. And then come to the table prepared, ready to go. Yeah. It's like, no, I am a learn by doing person. Right. And that's I expect the same of players at my table. It's like, you're going to learn, maybe not even over one session, but over the course of a few sessions, it's going to start clicking in your head for you. So, and I feel like that's really the best way to go about it. Yeah. So, and that worked for you, obviously.
It worked really well.
Yeah. You're a case in point right there. Yeah. But yeah, going back to the coming to D&D as a kid versus coming to D&D as an adult, D&D is like important to me. It's like integral to my being, and it's I credit D&D with a lot of the like confidence and just like people skills and problem solving, and even like my ability to really quickly add, subtract, divide, and multiply. Like just a lot of the day-to-day skills that I use, I credit to at least partially to D&D because it helps. I mean, you're looking somebody in the eye and talking to them and strategizing with them and having to use your social skills, and I feel like that's huge for kids especially. So D&D is really important to me in that facet. But so let me ask you this, I'm going to get cheesy here for a little bit too. Would D&D be as important to you or as exciting for you if you and I hadn't met playing D&D?
Oh geez, that's so hard to answer.
I know, this is going beyond D&D, and this is getting deep into the relationship here. I'm just curious because I associate D&D with a lot of things, like happy childhood memories, spending time with my family, like really looking up to my dad and stuff like that. But I also associate it with like hanging out with my friends, having a good time with my friends, college friends, and also like meeting you. Yeah.
Well, it is really hard to say because I don't know what D&D would be like if
you and I hadn't met, or if we weren't doing it together.
If we weren't, but even if you and I didn't have a relationship beyond friendship.
Yeah.
I think it still would be something that was important to me, because I have made a lot of friends playing D&D.
Right.
And it's, I don't know, it's added like kind of a new exciting thing to do in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, there is like specific moments I can pinpoint, like early on when I was first playing D&D, that really like cemented it for me as a thing that I liked doing. So I was going to ask you, like, if there was a moment or moments, like, and you're still, I mean, you're what, 2 years into the hobby now? You've been playing for about 2 years?
Yeah.
Just over 2 years?
Yeah.
So, like, even recent things, like, things that have really stuck out to you as, like, I really like this. Like, this is something I like doing, and it kind of reminding you why you enjoy it.
Right. For me, there was sort of like a aha moment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even in-game. It was after we had finished Sunless Citadel.
Mm-hmm.
And you had suggested getting ready for the next campaign that we were doing.
Yeah.
That Darren, our friend Darren, was going to be DMing.
The Swamp campaign.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you said, well, why don't you like look online or look at the core rule book and look through the different races, the different classes, and just like see what you might want to play,
right.
And then that you would help me or one of our other friends would help me build a character based off of what I found in there.
Yeah.
And because I hadn't even looked in the core rule book
when you were
or
playing.
anything at all.
Yeah.
So I remember I was at a Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
I don't even remember why I was there.
Right.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna go
Look
see
at
if
the
they have
Pathfinder.
that book.
Yeah.
At see if they have Pathfinder books.
Uh-huh.
And so I pulled out the core rule book and just hung out in Barnes and Noble for a while.
Yeah.
Leafing through the core
I didn't
rule
know
book.
this. You never told me this. Yeah.
And I was reading through the different classes and the first class is Barbarian.
Yeah, because
it's
alphabetical.
And I'm just I want to play a Barbarian.
Yeah.
So bad.
And then did you look at races after that?
I already knew. I was like, I'm going to play a half-orc.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to play a half-orc because they're cool.
They are. They're awesome. I love half-orcs. No.
So I knew that. I already knew that because
I
already knew I wanted to play a half-orc, and I was like, well, what thing? And, half-orc Barbarian, that, now I know that's super cliche.
Well,
kind of a thing to do. But I'm just reading the stuff about Barbarian, and I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
I want to bite things.
Yeah. And rage and use your rage as a magical power. Yeah, absolutely.
And I just remember reading that, and I read through all of the stuff about Barbarians and was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait to play more and play all of these different
characters,
combinations of races and classes.
Yeah.
And just kind of play around with all of this cool stuff that you can do.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of D&D is just coming up with character concepts and seeing them come to life at the table.
Right,
So that's how Isra was born.
It was how Isra was born.
Who is a character that you still play to this day.
Yeah.
And we just ported her over to 5th edition other day. And she's just as awesome in 5th edition.
She's maybe even better.
Maybe even better. Barbarians are really good in 5th edition. So.
No, but it's just sort of, I'm reading all of this work that has gone into these descriptions of classes and everything, and was just so excited by this new way to be creative and it was really exciting. Yeah. So that was kind of my ooh, I'm gonna play this for a long time, if not forever.
Because you see all the possibilities in front of you.
Yeah.
And you imagine all of these characters in different settings, even just I could play one character, and if you put them in different settings, they would be a totally different character in each of those settings. So it is the classes being so different from each other, and the races being different from each other too. It's a cleric is not a paladin, is not a fighter. They're all so different, and even wizard and sorcerer just have such different flavor to them that it's just there's literally no end to the characters you can create in this game. It's not like you're you know, rifling through a box of characters and like, I'll play this character this time.
Right.
It's just, you know, there's no limit to it.
Yeah.
And that's really, I can remember that being a huge thing for me too. So
yeah, that was really the big like gotcha moment.
Yeah,
for me.
D&D had its claws in you at that moment. Yeah.
Because I obviously I was having fun playing with you guys because I was like, I'll keep playing.
Right.
But then having all of the possibilities laid out in front of me.
Yeah.
After I had experienced it enough to not be intimidated.
That's what I was going to say or ask you is if you had looked through like the Pathfinder core rulebook before playing, would you have been as excited about the possibilities or would you have been completely overwhelmed?
Well, honestly, the first time that I came and played with you guys, my very first session of D&D ever, I saw this character sheet for the first time with all of this stuff on it.
Yeah.
And then I looked over at the shelf and saw all of these
the
books
Pathfinder
on it.
books. Yeah.
And then you started RPing with voices. And that first half of that session, I was like, oh, hell no.
You were ready to walk out?
I was like, I don't know if I can do this. It's a lot. But then, as I said, things got rolling. They were like, you don't... rolling.
Yeah. Nice.
Like, you don't have to know all the rules because Matt's going to tell you what you have to do, kind of a thing.
Right.
And then it was fine.
Yeah.
But no, the first like hour or so of D&D I ever played, I was so freaked out.
I feel like we just introduced a couple of friends to D&D recently.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a pretty standard session, go in the dungeon, get the artifact type session, but it starts out with them in a tavern, obviously, talking to this elf guy. And I love doing voices, and I don't even think twice about it, but you know, like our friend is just like, well, I'm like in the tavern, I'd probably be like reading a book or something, and I'm just like, an elven man approaches you, and he's like, hello, madam, what? I need help retrieving an artifact. And she's just like, what the hell? Like, and I don't even think about the fact that would be very kind of intimidating a little bit. So, but once you got past,
I mean, obviously, then I was fine.
well, obviously, unless there's something you're not telling me, but I mean, in that session, did you come to like, I actually enjoy the voices.
Yeah.
I like acting things out.
Right. Well, honestly, it took a session or two for me to be okay with the fact that some people do voices
and some people don't. Which is fine.
I don't really do voices. I maybe will change my inflection a little bit.
Yeah.
Or like for Isra, she's like a 6.5 foot tall half orc barbarian.
Yeah.
So it's like I lower my voice a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to give her a little more like grit.
A little gruffness.
But that's something that I didn't do
starting out
for like months.
Yeah. No. I didn't do voices when I first started out either. That's actually, I didn't do voices when we were playing in college either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, like changing your inflection. I mean, that's big. You don't have to do like a funny accent.
Right.
Sometimes it's better to just use your voice and just talk differently.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like your Zelly, your gnome character. It's your voice, but you're talking very excitedly, a lot more quickly.
Right. Yeah.
And
well, the vocabulary is another.
The vocabulary
big
is
thing
different. Yeah.
too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, but as far as like the intimidation factor goes, like I was super intimidated, but
that's interesting.
then it got better.
I mean, I don't even think about the fact that you walk into the room and there's like 12 Pathfinder books, and you're like, I haven't even read the first one. Like, if you don't
I'm
understand,
so far behind.
If you don't understand how Dungeons and Dragons works, you're like, Monster Manual 3. I don't even have the first two. What the hell? Like, you're thinking you have to go through and read all of this stuff.
Right.
But it's all just pieces that you can put in your game. And for the most part, it's the Dungeon Master's job to do that. So, but yeah, I didn't even think about the fact that how intimidating that would be.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. So, to kind of wrap things up and tie it up in a neat little bow here, what advice would you give somebody new to the hobby? And you can maybe, since you have experience with this, if you're an adult or older on in life and you're coming to it new, what advice would you give somebody?
I think that the biggest thing goes back to what we were just talking about, and that is don't let don't let yourself be intimidated by it.
Right.
And one of the best ways to do that is, like, don't be afraid to just say, this is, when you're playing, this is what I'd like to try and do. How do I do that?
Yeah.
And I still say that all the time.
Absolutely. I do. I mean, I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, don't be afraid to be new
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Because it's like if somebody has invited you to play, or you found a group that is having you play with them, then they want you to be there, and they're going to try and help you be more comfortable with it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that'd be my biggest piece of advice. And the next one would be the next biggest piece of advice.
Number 2.
Would probably be, just be comfortable making it your own. And it's like Matt and I play D&D very differently from each other.
We do.
And still have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't really do voices, and it doesn't really matter.
No.
Like, I still have fun. Everyone at the table is still able to have fun with my character.
Yeah.
And it's just an opportunity to be creative and express yourself in a unique way. So don't be afraid to make it your own.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I mean, the fact that, like, you and LaToya and, like, Ian don't do voices at the table doesn't take away from the fact that, like, me and Chad and, like, Darren do voices at the table.
Right.
Like, it doesn't clash. It doesn't break immersion at all.
Yeah.
Like, it just works.
Right.
Because we all have different styles of playing.
Yeah.
And some people talk in the third person, like, Isra does this, and some people talk in first person like, I do this, you know, and
Right.
even though everybody's doing it differently, it just kind of works.
Yeah, so really, like, what it all boils down to is, and one thing that I think is maybe a little more of a struggle as an adult versus a kid, is don't overthink it.
Yes, absolutely.
There's so much going on, it's really hard, it's really easy to overthink.
Yeah.
And you just sort of have to just, like, let it happen.
Yeah.
Just go with the flow.
Go with the flow.
And,
absolutely.
You know, just because everyone else at the table is, you know, playing fighters and really into, like, let's go out and, like, kill bad guys or whatever. If you have a character who's interested in, like, if it's more fun for you to play a character who wants to be doing research or on a quest for knowledge or pretty things or whatever, like, that's the great thing about the game is you can do whatever you want.
The biggest advice I would give is, like, work on getting over the weirdness of it.
Yeah.
Because D&D is inherently very weird. Like, it's a weird, like, if you during a D&D game just stop and think about what you're doing for a second, it's like, this is so weird. Like, we are sitting around a table pretending to be other people using, like, polyhedral objects to determine our luck and our chances at things. It's really weird, and if you just get over that and say, like, it is weird, and we're all being weird together, and nobody is judging anybody else for being weird at the table, then it becomes so much more fun. And everybody reaches that point in D&D where it's like, okay, this is fun. I'm going to stop worrying about being weird because, you know, Matt's using a funny voice, so he's a lot weirder than I am. So I'll be the weirdest one at the table, and I don't care. I'll take that bullet. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Party of Two, where there's going to be much more to come, and we're also going to be doing a video series called The Game Table, where Tila and I sit down with other members of our various game groups and talk about D&D and RPGs and collaborative storytelling and all that fun stuff. So definitely look forward to that. So anyway, that's going to be it from us. Take care and happy gaming, all.
Well, you had asked about, we started talking about the difference between starting as a kid and starting as an adult. Oh my gosh.
Got that on camera.